I'll never send. When all habitual dalliance will finally end, then crustiness, my friend and foe, to oblivion you will go, belonging to tomorrow, belonging to tomorrow. Soon I'll make that journey out to Paradise Falls, and on all the stifling lethargy, time will now be called. Then Crastinus, the snake-eyed schmo, to Gehenna town you will go, belonging to tomorrow, belonging to tomorrow. Then Crastinus, bringer of woe, to the darkest darkness you will go, belonging to tomorrow, belonging to tomorrow.
Good evening, everybody. Apologies for the late start. I'm having some issues with YouTube. Basically, the live streaming page, when you're live streaming, is supposed to give you a preview so that you can see what's uploading as you're streaming, and it's not working. So I can't see what's going to stream, unfortunately. So, which is a little bit rubbish. So I'm not entirely 100% sure what I'm going to do about that. But there it is. So I was basically trying to get this working, and it was just refusing to work properly. So it basically says an error occurred. Please try again later. Well, I've started streaming now, so I'm not going to try again later. So there it is. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with that. So I'm just kind of guessing at the moment, which is I'm guessing that we've got clear picture, and I'm guessing that the audio sounds okay. Because I can't see, and I just don't know. Usually the little preview player that you get in the streaming page, if I show you that, I'll show you exactly what I mean. This is the page that I see when I'm streaming, and this is the preview player up here. And as you can see, it says an error occurred. Please try again later. Which is great fun because it means I can't see what you guys can see, which is very annoying. So I can't see if there's any problems. So it's very frustrating. And yes, there are some issues with analytics if you are monetizing your videos and those kind of things. There's an issue with some of your most recent videos not showing up in analytics. YouTube know about that and they are working to fix that. That's been ongoing for a day or two. But they told me, because I've been emailing back and forth with them, they told me that that's something that will be fixed over the next 24 hours. So that should get resolved and you should see your most recent videos start showing up in analytics. So it's messing up with your figures just now, but it will all right itself, apparently. So there you go. Clear over here, it says Larry Gibson Music. Hey Larry, I think you're new to my show, so welcome. So that is what is going on here. That's what's making it hard for me to know exactly what's going on. So you guys are going to have to help me out tonight, okay? I have the chat popped out to my second screen. So, yeah, if I don't let you see the correct screen, then please just direct me. I would appreciate that. So, how's everybody doing? I hope everyone's okay. I am just literally back in the door. I've been in town all day. I was at church this morning, and then I've been over at a studio down in Leith, which is kind of like the west side of the city. And I've been doing some bass playing down there, so that's been fun and entertaining and kept me busy. And I've only got back like 10 minutes ago, so I realized it was running tight for getting everything set up, and then of course this happened with YouTube, which made us even later. So there we go. Let's see, who do we have? We have David SJ and a good number of other people. Let's go right back up to the top because a few of you were in the door nice and prompt, which is great. Just Bob was the first one in the door, followed by RJ Hagler, and Tony is here as well. Ken Moss, Just Bob, Greg, Thomas, good to see you. And Thomas, I'm going to butcher your surname, so I'm not even going to try. Thomas is here, and David SJ and Peace Valley Audio, my good friend Mike Neighbor is here. And he says, what am I doing? Yes, I know. I was trying to get this working, and it was refusing to work, so I had to just go, okay, we're late enough. Let's see, but Bobby Booth is here. Booth Mixing and Mastering Service is here. He says hello. And you're talking about plugins. Let's see, who else do we have? Deer Creek Audio is here. He says, you need to stand up so we can see that good-looking shirt. Oh, this one here, yeah. This is a Presonus hoodie, which I got 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Can't remember exactly when I got it, but yeah. Let's see. Don't stand up, may not be wearing trousers. I pretty much always wear trousers, but thanks for that. Let's see. Bobby says, won't be watching David, no link to get there to watch. If you are a part of mixingmadeeasy.net, you should get an email sent to you that has the link to the coaching call, which is ongoing tonight. So if you're a member of Mixing Made Easy, you can either be there or you can be here. I don't really mind, actually. I don't mind where you go, or you could have both popped open and you could watch both shows at the same time. It's up to you. I don't really mind. Let's see. Peace Valley Audio says he's not wearing pants. I pretty much always wear pants. Good grief. You guys are hilarious, though. But thank you. Let's see. what topic do we have for tonight? Well, I'm going to have a little bit of a rant, I'm afraid. But don't worry, it's not going to get personal because I'm not like that. I'm not that kind of person. But I have noticed recently, just in the last few days, that people have just around and about on the internet, not just on Facebook, but on the Personas forums and a few other forums as well. People are complain quite a bit about missing out on certain deals that might be available, and they complain that, hey, they didn't get the chance to get this, and they think they really should. You know, if like something is being offered for free because you're a Persona Studio One user, that therefore you should get a certain something for free, and they miss out on it. And you know, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe then they're just not being particularly vigilant. I mean, there's so much social media around these days. Plus, if you're subscribed to the Personas newsletter, you should get all of that sent to you. If there are deals, if there are 50% offs or 70% offs or all of that stuff, Personas are pretty good at getting that kind of stuff out to their customers. So if you miss out and you miss the closing date on a particular deal, don't whine about it. You know, I've been talking to a couple of people today who have kind of whined about it in various locations, and you know what? You just don't have an attitude of entitlement. It's not a good thing to have, because at the end of the day, you know, there are companies like Personas who work very, very hard to provide great products for us to use to make music. And, you know, what they provide is fantastic, high quality stuff. Yeah, you know, if you miss out on a deal, don't cry about it. Just go, okay, I'll catch the next one. Because at the end of the day, it's just one deal. There are loads of others. There are Black Friday deals. There are Easter deals. There are Christmas deals. There are New Year's deals. There are, you know, there's loads. If you miss out on one, another one will come along. So don't whine about it. So there you go. That's my rant. That's my rant for the day. RJ is saying Classroom. I don't know why you're saying Classroom, because I'm not meant to be on Classroom right now, so you should be seeing me. At least that's what OBS is telling me. So no, we're not in Classroom right now. So let's see. That's kind of my rant, really. I'm just, you know, just because you're a loyal customer to a particular company doesn't mean that you are therefore entitled to get something for free. You're not. If you want that company that you are loyal to continue to be successful, to continue to provide outstanding products, then they need your money. They need you to purchase things. They don't need you to sit there and wait for freebies. Because if you do that, the company stops making outstanding products and they start laying off staff. And they start losing money. And then eventually they cease to exist. So if you're loyal to a brand and you're loyal to a company, you wait for the next freebie. It will come. So there you go. The end. Let's see. Ken says, I already have the True Verb from Waves, but I will download it anyway because it will extend my window for updates, so I still win. Excellent idea. I don't know whether it'll let you download it twice. It might. I don't know. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was a little bit about groups, the new group feature, because I know a few people have kind of gone, oh, I wish we could go back to the old way of doing groups. Well, the new way of doing groups is better. You know, some of the complaint is the old way is less visual. You can't necessarily always see what you've got grouped and what you haven't got grouped. Well, actually, it's actually a lot more visual, before you kind of had to kind of just try and remember what's grouped to what, and it was less obvious. And so the new way of grouping is a lot more visual, but you need to make sure that you have the mixer view set up correctly so that you can see the groups. And it's actually a lot easier to see, my opinion. Deer Creek says, good rant, tell them how much it cost to record 25 years ago. Well, exactly. Yes, if you wanted to make a record 25, 30 years ago, it would cost you, you'd have to mortgage a house, effectively. It's the same price. It could be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to get the job done to a really high standard, to the kind of high standard that you would be pleased with, that you would want to put out. And then, of course, you have to flog that record with your sweat, your blood, and your tears in order to make back the investment. And then, of course, you want to make a little bit of profit. And that's really hard, actually. Back then, that was really, really hard. If it was going to cost you $20,000, $30,000 to make the record, then you'd have to do a lot of shows or sell a lot of merchandise to try and make that $20,000, $30,000 investment back. But if you wanted to actually make profit so that you could earn a living from that, that's a little bit harder to do, unless you really, really, really flog yourself. So nowadays, it's so much cheaper. All you need is a $300 setup, and you can make a record. You can put that out on Bandcamp. You can sell it, and then you can sell little thumb drives with your record on it. Or you can sell CDs. I mean, who sells CDs these days? Or you can sell, little download cards, and it's just a download code, and they go to Bandcamp and they just put in their download code, and it gives your fan at your show a 20% discount because, hey, they purchased it at the gig and not just gone on to your Bandcamp site or whatever to go and buy it. So the chance of making a lot more profit now is massive compared to back then. You don't have to flog yourself quite so hard, albeit now you are much more in control of how it sounds, but also you're more reliant upon your own skill sets. So, back then you'd be relying upon a lot more other highly skilled, highly experienced engineers. Now you are the engineer, for better or for worse. So maybe that means the quality is less than it was when you were hiring, top-notch engineers to make your record. So there are those things you have to weigh up. Let's see. Sell vinyl, digital media sucks, in your opinion. Yeah, vinyl is on the way back in, which is great. I'm really pleased that vinyl is coming back. Because vinyl sounds great. What I would love to do is I'd love to do a test on my classic 1972 turntable. And I'd like to A/B a new vinyl against an original 1970s vinyl, and basically try and compare and contrast. Does the newer vinyl sound better than the old vinyl, or whatever? I suspect maybe it will sound a bit better because the cutting technology is much improved on what it was in the 70s. So I don't know. Maybe it will. I'd love to try that one out. Dickery says people make YouTube livings just using their phone. Yes, some people do. You have to have a massive subscriber base to make a living out of YouTube. You really do. Mine has grown quite a bit recently. I think in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think I've added nearly 500 subscribers, which is a reasonable growth rate, I think. But really, you need to have, like, I don't know, 70,000, 80,000, 100,000 subscribers. And then you have to have a large percentage of that to, to come to your live streams and to super chat and all of that. And then, of course, the advertising revenue. So your videos have to get lots and lots of views. So, it's much harder to make a living out of YouTube than it looks. I mean, I make some money from YouTube, but it's not my only revenue stream. If YouTube was my only revenue stream, I may as well go flip burgers, to be honest, because I would earn more. Over the course of a year, I would earn more. But that's not to say that I don't earn out of it. I do. So there we go. So I was going to talk about groups. So let's get into Studio One and have a look at the new grouping. So here I have it shown with the new grouping here. But initially that doesn't show up unless you tell it to. And you would need to have this little box here checked. If you don't have that box checked, then yes, you're going to find it hard to see what's grouped to what. You just are, unless you have this open and then you can see your band group here. But yeah, that otherwise is a little bit awkward. So the thing to do is to make sure that in your wrench here you have the group assignments set up. And then you can see what's grouped to what. And it's much easier. So pay attention to this. And you can change that to any color you want. I've got it this color because I think that it will stand out on pretty much any other color that I have my channels colored to. So even my bus is over here. If I was to, this is because I was testing some. There is a bug with busing at the moment and colorizing them, and I was testing that today, which is why they are just numbered. But yeah, if I wanted all of these to be added to this group here, this color is going to stand out on these red buses really easily. So that is kind of the way the new grouping thing works, and the way it will show up. So if you have a very, very high track count of, let's say, I don't know, 100, 120 channels on your mixer, and even, having them show up in your event view over here, you can have those shown up. But if you want to see your groups over here, then you need to let's see, that's not there, it's over here, isn't it? And there's your group there. But the thing that doesn't show up in the event view is what channel is grouped to what. So that doesn't show up over here. And I haven't worked out a way to make them show up. You probably can, but I haven't worked that out yet. So if you can't do it, then I guess that would be a feature request for somebody to put in. If that's something that bothers you. It doesn't bother me, but it might bother you. I don't think you can make it show up. Not that I've seen anyway. I don't think there is an option for a colorized track. So channel numbers in tracks, show track notes, show codes on events. No, yeah, there's no option to make the group indicators show up like they do in the mixer over here. So that would actually maybe be a feature request if you use groups a lot, and when you're in this view here, it matters to you to be able to see the groups. Personally, I would just go, hey, in my mixer, I can look in my mixer what they are. And it's just like one shortcut button to press to see that. That's not that hard. So, hey, that's just me. And I'd rather have this closed so that it's not taking up screen real estate. But that's me. Let's see. Pete Harrison is here. Why are those slider knobs blue? Oh, because these are buses. That's why these ones are blue. Yeah, buses have always been blue. Even back in Studio One version 2, buses were blue. VCAs are red. Effects channels and buses are blue, and normal channels are white. That has always been the color coding for your fader caps since Studio One version 2.5, I believe, if memory serves. And yep, Peace Valley Audio confirms that. So there you go. That's why those are that color. But there you go, Pete. And I think you're new to my show, so welcome. I hope you find this show useful. It's a little bit chaotic and disorganized because I'm having issues with YouTube. That means I can't see half the darn things I need to see. But yeah, so there we go. That is that. So that's the grouping. Groups are very cool. I don't really use them very much, but I'm fairly sure that as I go, I will use them a lot more. But yeah, not really into groups. I never really have been. I just use buses and VCAs. I don't even use VCAs very often. Back in my early days on consoles, I used VCAs quite a bit on the SSLs. Because it's just dead easy for doing automation. Because you'd have to do that live to track. So dead easy to have everything grouped to various VCAs, and then all you're having to do is automate the VCAs. Instead of like having 5 of you on the console with 10 channels each and trying to do the fader rides that way, have them all on VCA faders and doing it that way was just a lot easier. But yeah. And I thought when VCAs came to Studio One, I think it was 3.2, PreSonus introduced VCA faders. I think it was 3.2. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, when VCA faders came to us, version 3.2, I thought, yes, great, finally, VCAs, yes, absolutely, I'm going to use them a lot. Have I used them? Hardly. I think when I've done some orchestral stuff, I've used them. But that's it. For most of my regular stuff, which is jazz stuff or acoustic or folk kind of oriented music, I don't use them at all. Bus is pretty much it. Dear Creek says, Cakewalk has a feature where you could put your personalized pictures to create your own fader caps, knobs, meters, shading, etc. Do you think that is possible with the PreSonus coding? I have absolutely no idea because I'm not a coder. I know nothing about the coding. The people you want to ask about the coding are the people in Hamburg. I know nothing. And I don't know. I think unless you know the language in which DAWs are written and you know that language really well, I think it's a mistake to assume that things are easy because they might not be. You know, it might be for this whole group thing to show up in the event view, you probably think, hey, oh, that's surely that can that's like 2 lines of code that can be added in 30 minutes and then tested real quick, and then they can just put out an update with that in it. Well, there's a lot of assumption there. We're assuming it's 3 lines of code. It might not be. It might be 3 pages of code, for all we know. And actually, other code might actually have to be shifted about and moved, and then the new code put in order to make it work so it doesn't break something else, which is half the battle with writing software, is that as you update it and try and make it better, improvements that you make, new features that you introduce might conflict with already existing features. And that's what produces bugs. So there's always that potential. So, for the number of times I see people say, hey, this should be easy. Why can't you just write, have this in the next maintenance update? Well, doesn't necessarily work like that. And besides which, most software companies have a roadmap. They are, the guys in Hamburg, we are on Studio One 4.5.1 right now. The guys in Hamburg are probably 2 or 3 versions ahead of us. I don't doubt that they're probably 2 or 3 versions ahead of us. I don't actually know because I don't know the roadmap, but I think it's fairly safe to guess that they are probably a few versions ahead of us. And so, when we put in our feature requests, they have to see if they fit into a particular version and when it would be appropriate and all of that. So it's a tough job trying to please everybody, which is why I don't do it. But then I can afford not to do it. So Dickrick says, I learned what a VCA fader was on an old ARP 2600, my first introduction to the term. Yes, volume controlled amplifiers. They are super powerful, super awesome, and Cubase has had them for a very long time. And it took the PreSonus guys a wee while before they decided that they were a good idea too. But that's okay, like I said, roadmaps, all of that, Let's see. We got 25 people in here, which is freaking amazing, guys. So welcome, everybody. I hope your weeks have been outstanding and fantastic. Mine has actually been really good, really productive, very busy. I'm working on, I think about 3 different, is it 3 or 4 different? I think it's actually 4 different EPs at the moment. I'm either playing on them, producing, and actually I think I'm producing all 4 of them. Yes. No. I'm producing 3 of them, and 1 of them I'm just mixing and mastering. But the other 3, I'm involved in the whole thing from start to finish. So I'm playing on them, I'm producing, and I'm mixing and mastering. It's a package I offer for a ridiculously reasonable fee. And so I've got 3 of those ongoing. Plus, I'm deep into writing songs for my next EP as well, for my next EP. I've been trying to get an EP out since 2016. I got one out in 2016, and then I've had like a couple of individual singles in 2017 and 2018. But I decided, right, this is the year I'm finally going to get an EP out. And I've got some good songs, and I'm just working on the arrangements and making some phone calls to hire some guest musicians. It's going to be good. It's going to sound very different if you were to compare my new songs with the songs from Belonging to Tomorrow, which incidentally you heard the title track to as the intro music. Yeah, that was Belonging to Tomorrow, the title track from that EP from 2016. The next one's going to sound very, very different. There will be some key kind of regular ingredients, such as sarcasm, and some of the harmonic ideas might be similar, but a lot of the other production ideas and some of the musical ideas are going to be quite new and fresh. So that's going to be very cool. I'm very excited by that. Deer Creek says, Cakewalk's custom view program is too deep to be quick and easy, but it is interesting. You can get some fairly realistic looks. Easier to, I don't know what that is, off a group effort page of a theme you might like. Okay. Have you ever felt behind being self-employed? I'm self-employed, and it's hard to take a break when you feel you have to catch up with a super busy schedule. Yeah, sometimes actually I do feel behind. I have to work reasonably hard at making sure that in my schedule, I build in break times. Otherwise, I don't take breaks. So, because, there's that, hey, I need to keep working in order to keep up with everything. So I try and schedule in breaks So, I might have a week off here, a week off there, or a couple of weeks off over there. Something like that. And I'll build that into my year. And I try and plan them out according to school holidays, so that I make sure that I have more time for my kids during school holidays than not. So, I mean, we've got a 6-week holiday coming up fairly soon for the schools. My kids will be out for 6 weeks, so I'm going to be working for quite a bit of that 6 weeks, but I want to have at least a week where I'm not doing anything other than bare essentials, such as this show, and everything else kind of like will sit on a back burner for that period. So I have breaks built into it so that I don't feel like I'm always kind of behind the curve. That's what I try to do. Mike says, I'm not self-employed. I have the most demanding part-time job ever. Feels like I never have time for music, or I'm just too freaking tired. Yes, you are a professional driver. You are a school bus driver, and that is very demanding, because you're not only having to drive the bus and get the kids from A to B without killing any of them, but you're also having to deal with behavior. And depending upon the school, you might get some kids that are really well behaved and some kids that are just abominably behaved, and you're constantly having to deal with that. And that's very demanding and very draining and very tiring. I totally get that. And so, yes, I think for you, you probably just need to build in like some time, maybe even make kind of what you do musically a part of your downtime, a part of your relaxation time, so that music becomes something you do to unwind at the end of a day. That might be a good way in which you are able to find time for music, i.e. music is the relaxation that you do. Do you know what I mean? Maybe that might help you. David says, I work 52 hours, 6 days a week. It's difficult to find time to do anything. Yeah, if you've got a very busy schedule. I mean, yes, I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed since the 1990s. But there have been times where I've also taken on some other part-time work as well. I was a music journalist for a little while. I wrote some articles for some magazines, some music magazines. Because sometimes music can't fund your life entirely. A lot of the time it can, I've found actually that one of my best revenue streams has been session work, actually. Playing bass, playing keyboards, singing, playing woodwind instruments or brass instruments for people for their records. That's a fairly consistent revenue source. Writing arrangements for other people is another one for me. I've got, being self-employed, I have maybe 6 or 7 revenue streams. They're all music related. That's the key thing, is that all of my business that Jonny Lipsham Studios it's all music related. So there are a number of different things I do. I do the session work, I do mixing and mastering, I do production. I also do some voiceover work. I also I write arrangements, as I said, for various bands. So I'll write arrangements for wind bands, I write arrangements for string quartets, I write arrangements for brass bands, big bands, you name it, I write arrangements for them. And that's a lot of fun to do. I enjoy doing those. So I have like 6 or 7 different revenue sources. And that means I have always a consistent income coming in. When I'm not, when mixing jobs are a little bit thin on the ground, I'm not kind of getting desperate because I've got other things that I can do that I can make money from that are all music. So, and I think that's important. If you're going to run a studio out of your home with the intention of making money from it, then really the best thing you can do for yourself is to have more than one revenue stream. So not just mixing and mastering. Because, when the mixing jobs don't come in for a little while, what are you going to do? How are you going to keep making money? How are you going to keep the income consistent? The way to do that is to have several different revenue sources. So, go and play on other people's records or offer to do production. Say, hey, I will gladly oversee production of this record for you. I'll help you get the right session musicians for the right songs, all of those kind of things. When you're recording, I'll help you kind of make the vision for each of your songs come into being. Writing arrangements, session work, playing on other people's records. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do. Teaching, creating tutorial products that you can sell, memberships, all of those kind of things. There's loads of different revenue sources that you can have. That means that when you don't have any mixing jobs going on, you've always got these kind of things that you can keep doing. And that's why I do this show, and that's why I make videos for my YouTube channel. It's because I know that I've always got a little bit of income coming in from YouTube, and as my subscriber base grows, in the description below this video and in every video that I do, there is always a link to my email list. You can sign up to my email list. You can get on there, and when you get on my email list, there's a free set of stems, multi-track files to one of my songs that you can mix, and you can use that in your portfolio. So there's that that you get for free. There's a video series on compression that you get for free. But also, once you're on my email list, I can start kind of interacting with you in a different way than I do here on this show or on Facebook or wherever. And I can make stuff, products and things that I make available to you for, a price that I wouldn't make available to anywhere else. So there's my email list and all of that. So, have a diverse revenue stream. Write some articles for some magazines. Go to your local music store and say, hey, can I do some production masterclasses? And they will usually jump at those kind of things and say, hey, can we do this for, a small fee? Agree a small fee with them, and, off you go. You can get that done. And not only do you make a little bit of money from an agreed fee that you've made with that music store, but also your audience that come to your masterclass, you can connect with directly. And you can say, get on my email list or become a subscriber to my YouTube channel, whatever. Use all of these things as a fishing net to bring people in to your business where you can sell your services to them. So there you go. Many eggs in the basket, many revenue sources, and all of these little things add up. It's like compression on a mix. A little bit of compression on each thing, a little bit of compression here, 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 and here, and here, all adds up. And, you can be compressing, overall, you can be compressing 12 dB, but it doesn't feel like it because you're not using one compressor that's doing all the 12 dBs. You've got 5 or 6 stages of compression, and they're all doing 2 or 3 dB along the way. And it's those little things that add up, and the cumulative effect is much greater. And it doesn't feel like a heavy weight, which is, what a single compressor doing 12 dB would do. So there you go, little compression analogy for diversifying your revenue streams. So there you go. Sorry, that was kind of a little soapbox moment as well. I started the show with one. Dickory says, my business has taken off so dramatically that I could never match it doing music, even back in the old band days. So I do that and let music be for fun nowadays. No drunk studio customers. Yeah, I don't have any drunk studio customers either. I'm very glad to inform you. And if I'm not mistaken, Chris, your business is in the boating industry, I believe. RJ says, I'll be in Chicago for work this week. Always miss my studio time. Chicago, awesome. That's where my sister lives. And of course, that's where our great friend Jonny Guide is there too. Mike says, I could never be a tracking studio. I'm in our master bedroom. My wife doesn't want people in here. Yeah, I totally understand that. I don't do a lot of tracking. I do some, but I don't do a lot. And really, it's only local artists that I have connected with in Edinburgh or across the river over in Fife that come in here. So I tend to kind of make connection with them outside, and I get to know them. And I, once I've got to know them and I think, hey, they are a trustworthy individual, I can work with them and I can know two things. Number one, they're going to be responsible when they're and professional when they're in my studio space, in this room, in my house. And secondly, I know they're going to pay on time. If I don't see those two things in an artist, they are not going to track with me. They're not going to come in and record with me. So, if I know that they are coming in here to party, we don't work together. And the other thing is that I always take a deposit for anything. For anything that I do in my business, I take deposits, and they're non-refundable deposits. So if you want to record with me, we have a flat fee for recording. You pay 50% up front. And if you don't show up, I keep that 50%. If you do show up, you pay you pay the balance before you leave, basically. And that's how that works. If you're hiring me to mix, the same applies. 50% up front is a flat fee. So 50% of that flat fee for your song or for your album or your EP or whatever it is. And then, you pay the 50% balance on delivery of the final product. And that's how that works. And we have contracts, legally binding contracts that I have for everything. So if you want to come and record, we have contracts that I sign, you sign, and then at that point the 50% deposit is handed over. And the same for mixing. We have contracts. I send out a PDF contract, you sign it, I sign it, and that's how that works. And that means that, I'm only ever working with reputable people. I'm not working with time wasters, because, time wasters are not going to be the kind of people that will pay a 50% deposit and then not show up unless they've got stupidly large amounts of money. So that would be that, really. Yeah, Chris says, I agree. Who wants a lousy band and a huge drum kit in their personal home nowadays, unless you're single and 22 years old? Yeah, exactly. It says, I found being a studio engineer was fun most of the time, but like any job, there were lousy times, horrible paying clients, inconsiderate customers, rude musicians, but a killer session erased it all. And he says, yes, I fix cruising sailboats. I love sailing. I love sailing too, actually. I've done my fair share of sailing. My mum is into sailing, or at least she was when she was a wee bit younger. And so, yeah, we did go sailing a fair bit on some reasonably sized sailing boats. Great fun. Love it. Especially when the sea is rough. That's when I prefer it, actually. I don't like to go out in flat seas. I much prefer to go out in something that's got some nice, some nice pitch and yaw about it. Most people don't like it when it's rough, but I love it when the sea is rough. It's great. Deposit to get on the schedule, otherwise you don't get on the schedule. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how I work. No deposit, no gig. You don't come and work with me. All right, so I am happy to run past the 1 a.m. mark. 1 a.m. for my time, 7 p.m. Central. I'm quite happy to keep going for a wee bit because we did start late, so I'm happy to go on until maybe 20 past 1, 20 past 7. So if you guys have got any more questions, let's get them in. And as I say, we'll run for another 20 minutes. Happy to do that. So I'm happy to talk Studio One. I'm happy to talk macros. If you guys have got any questions about the new macros, then yeah, we can talk about those. I personally think the new macros are fantastic. They are awesome. And I have found them incredibly useful, especially the audio editing ones. I've used them a fair bit recently. Particularly handy for doing voiceover work or, sending out a bass part, because I can gain stage in and out and then send it off. The other thing we can talk about is the audio batch converter as well. I don't know if any of you guys in the chat here have it or have seen it. I have it, and it's great. If you've got a whole bunch of files that you want to convert, and you want to convert them quickly, the audio batch converter is very, very good. And I think it's only $50, if memory serves, over in the Persona shop. It's only $50, I think. And it's as feature rich as something, competitor products that are way more expensive. And it really does do the job very well. I've used it quite a lot recently because the way I have used it lately is when people send me multi-track files, sometimes they'll do an export where even mono tracks are stereo files, and I could just go and change the bring them into Studio One. This is what I used to do: bring them into Studio One, change the channel condition, and bounce them that way. Could do that. That's how I used to do it, but now I use the batch converter to do it. I just bring all the multi-tracks in, and then I convert them to mono files from that point. Even if it's a piano track and they've made the piano track a stereo file, well, that kind of makes sense. But sometimes, fairly often, if it's two mics, I might actually want those to be separate files. So I'll have a piano left and a piano right, because if they're a matched pair of mics, or even if they're not, even if you've got two different types of microphone on the piano, I might want to treat them ever so slightly different to try and kind of balance out the sound or what have you between the two mics. So that's another way in which I use it. If I've got a stereo file, I want to split it to two mono files. The batch converter does that in a few seconds. Let's see. David SJ says, how do you manage your time when mixing? How often do you take breaks, and for how long? How many hours a day can you work on a mix before you lose focus and objectivity? That is a great, great question. In fact, there are several questions, so I'm going to try and break those down and answer each little part of that question there. How do you manage your time when mixing? And breaks and that kind of thing. Breaks are essential. My opinion here is, if you're mixing solidly for 35 minutes, once you get past that 35 minutes, your ears start to fatigue. Even if you're mixing at a low volume, your ears will still fatigue, and you will start to lose objectivity, and you'll start to lose focus. Now, having reference tracks will help you maintain your objectivity, over that period, and I use reference tracks a lot, have done since somebody suggested to me, in the early 2000s. So like, nearly 20 years ago, somebody suggested, hey, reference your mixes against other mixes in the same style, and it'll help keep you on track. So I use reference tracks a lot to help me keep the objectivity. And to make sure that I'm not getting too kind of involved in dealing with one particular aspect of the mix. I don't want to spend 25 minutes on the kick drum. Where's the value in that? So, I don't do that. So once I get to about what I do, here's what I do. If I'm going to be strict about management, is my phone, I set this for 35 minutes and I start working. And when this alarm goes off, I stop whatever I'm doing, even if I'm right in the middle of doing something. I stop what I'm doing, I do a save, and I walk away. I actually walk literally down the hall. And I will go into the kitchen and just I'll go into the lounge and I'll just take 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes where I'm not sat in here and I'm not listening to the mix. And give my ears a bit of a rest and, put myself in a different space as well. And then after, 5, maybe 10 minutes at the most, then I'll come back, I'll reset the timer, and I'll do another 35 minutes. But I try and get the bulk of the mix done in that first 35 minutes. So I like to mix fast. I don't like to spend ages going, okay, listening in solo and making tiny little adjustments here, tiny little adjustment here, thinking, should I EQ that way? Should I scoop the mids? Should I do that? Should I not do that? No, I just go, okay, scoop mids, doesn't sound good. Okay, add them back in. What about the upper mids? Okay, let's have a listen there. Okay, so we boost them, ugly. Cut them, cut them too much. Job done. Move on. Okay, what am I doing with this kick drum? Am I going to compress it really hard? Am I going to parallel compress it? Am I going to sidechain it to the bass? Let's do that. Sidechain to the bass. Let's compress that quite hard. Okay, dial it in. Move on. Next thing. And I'm doing this all with the whole mix going on. I rarely use the solo button. Sometimes I do if I want to focus on a particular, thing. Like I think I've isolated, if I'm listening to the whole mix, I go, you know what? There's a weird ring in that second acoustic guitar. I need to go find that and nuke it. So that's when I'll hit the solo button on that acoustic guitar channel and I will boost, sweep, and destroy, and then take the solo button off and listen to that in the context of the mix, and I just move on. I move really fast. I tend to advocate top-down mixing, so I start with the mix bus, go through my buses, and work my way down towards individual channels. And when I get to the individual channels, usually it's just a bit of sweetening by that point. I've done the bulk of shaping the tone in the buses. And all the balancing and, kind of there, I'm just kind of sweetening it up a bit on individual channels if they need it. And so that makes me mix faster. Okay, so let's get to the next part of your question. How many hours a day can you work on a mix before you lose focus and objectivity? Now, because I'm taking regular breaks, and I tend to try and get a mix done in, if I'm doing 35 minutes and then a break and then another 35 minutes. If I call each one of those a session, I try and get a mix of a whole song done into 35-minute sessions. And then I send out the first draft. And then I move on to the next song that I've got to mix. So if I'm doing an album of 10, 12 songs, that's how I break it up. So I will spend the morning from about 9:30 until 12:30 working on songs for a client's EP. And then the afternoon tends to be where I do a lot of my session work. And then the early evening, it's family time. And then when my wife and kids have gone to bed, I'm back in here for a couple of hours, and I will do some production work, or I'll do some other stuff, like I will do video making, or something like that. So if I've got a lot of projects on, that's kind of like how my week goes. But I tend to set aside Thursdays for doing social media, for doing the Personas Forum, because I'm one of the administrators there. So I oversee the whole forum with a group of other guys. So I'm doing that, and video production gets done in the afternoon. So the morning is social media time. The afternoon on a Thursday is making tutorial videos for my YouTube channel and for you guys. And then I start thinking towards the Sunday night show. So yeah, so I can maybe get, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 songs done in a week, easy. Mixing. And then of course, if I'm doing something where I'm mixing and mastering it, I'll do all the mixing in 1 week and the mastering the second week. So I can turn a record round in 2 weeks, 2 weeks easy. So, so 10 to 14 days is kind of a turnaround for me there. Let's go back. I want to catch the last part of Dave's question, which I think I've got actually. Just Bob says, is there a way in MIDI to make a trigger pad or a keyboard key do a double hit? Like press pad once, but it triggers 2 thumps on the bass drum. Don't think so. The way I do it is, if I want to make double hits, I'm not sure how easily you're going to be able to see it. Let's say my kick drum is mapped to this key here, and I want to go dudun 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 like that. Then I would just use my thumb and my index finger and just go dudun 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 dudun, or just dudun dudun, or do it with 2 hands and 2 fingers. Do it typewriter style. Yes, I know that takes up a little bit more energy, and you have to use 2 fingers rather than 1, and you have to do things twice instead of once. It is the way it is. I'm all for making things easy, but on the other hand, RJ Hagler says, I'm in awe of your schedule. This recording thing is my serious hobby, money burner, which I love. My day job books me 10 to 12 hours a day, which I love. Yeah. Here's the thing, and I think my friend Graham Cochran has talked about this quite a bit as well. He's talked quite a bit about not actually trying to work a lot. He's talked about actually trying to make less work pay more. So I don't need to do 14, 15, 16-hour days. I would prefer it if I don't have to. So I try and schedule things, and I try and work fast. Because if I work fast, then it means I get a lot more done in a lot less time, and then I have a lot more family time. So, I could easily work a 60, 70-hour week in the studio. Easy. But I'm nearly 44, and I spent a lot of my teens and 20s and early 30s doing 70-hour weeks, working 21-hour days. I did that a lot. In fact, there was a point in my early 20s when I was working 22 hours a day for 2-3 weeks at a time. And so there are only 24 hours in the day. Your math will tell you that was me sleeping for 2 hours a day. Yes, I did that. And I did that for several weeks in a row, and then I'd take a little bit of a break. But back then I was young. I had a lot of restless energy. I don't have that now. I'm a bit older, and I'm also a little bit wiser. After having had a heart attack at 29, I realized, maybe I need to sleep more and work maybe a little bit less, or work a little bit more efficiently. And that's kind of what I've learned how to do, is be a bit more efficient with my time. Try and get more done in a smaller space of time. And then that frees up a lot more time to be with my family, to relax and to have fun and, be sociable, which is something I'm not very good at. Let's see. Tough to get in a groove at home, need a 30-hour day. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about there. Mika Han says, I bet most of your home studio audience are creating at the same time as mixing. It's an all-in-one procedure. Fatigue is a good reason to take such projects to someone else to mix your masterpiece. Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. But I am a home studio guy. And, if mixing's not your bag, don't flog yourself to mix something. If mixing's not something you're good at or not something you can do, hand your work off to somebody that you trust, who you know has got good mixing skills and good mixing chops, who can make your song sound how you want it to sound. Don't spend hours and hours and hours trying to flog yourself into mixing when mixing's not your thing, because you'll end up wasting hours and hours and hours and getting very, very frustrated over working on a particular song and going, I've spent 3 hours on this kick drum and it sounds crap and I don't know what to do about it. And you end up, you've gone past the point of creativity. Creativity went, 6 hours ago, and now you're just in smoldering rage, frustration time because it's not working for you. Well, the reason it's not working for you maybe is because mixing's just not your thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. You guys that are in my show, not all of you are mix engineers. Some of you are. Some of you are not. Some of you are all-rounders. You're all-round production guys like me. You create, you write songs, you perform as a musician, and you're a mix engineer as well, and maybe you do a little bit of mastering as well, maybe. Some of you are like that. Some of you are not. Some of you are much better at being the creative songwriting type or a composing type, and mixing's not really your thing. Find somebody who is good at mixing and hand your work off to them, and then entrust them with how you want it to sound. And, that will make your life a lot easier. Likewise, if you're a great mix engineer, but you're not really good at performing, you're not really a musician, you're not really that much of a musician, you know enough to get by, or you're not really a composer or a songwriter, well, don't do it. Don't write songs if it's not really your thing. Find what your thing is and focus all of your attention on that, and get other people in to collaborate with who can fill in the gaps for you. Don't try and be a jack of all trades, because you'll end up not mastering any of them. I'm not a jack of all trades. There are things in the whole process that I am better at. I'm a very good arranger. I'm a good songwriter. I'm a very, very good musician. I'm a pretty good mix engineer. I think probably my weak point is mastering, which is why I don't really do a lot of it. I don't market myself as a mastering engineer. I have it as part of my all-round production package, but I'm not an Ian Shepherd. Ian Shepherd is a very good friend of mine, and he is an outstanding mastering engineer with a lot of years of experience. And, my own personal work, I would rather palm off to him and say, hey, Ian, could you master my EP? Because he's better at it than me. So, yes, I totally think that that's very wise. Let's see. Chris says, I think a more valuable musician nowadays should be able to record, mix, etc., use the studio as another instrument, just like a guitar. Yeah, I kind of agree with that to some degree. To some degree, I agree with you, Chris. I'm not going to say I completely agree with you. I think to make yourself as useful to others in the industry as possible is a good thing. That's why I, instead of just being just a drummer, I decided, hey, I'm going to be a drummer that can play bass. I'm going to be a drummer that can play piano. I'm going to be a drummer that can sing. I'm going to be a drummer that can play saxophone. I'm going to be a drummer that can play trumpet as well. I'm going to be a drummer that can play a little bit of guitar, because I figure, if I'm working with somebody who hires me as a bass player and they say, you know what, the one thing I don't have is a decent guitar track, I can put my hand up and say, yeah, I can do that for you. And that's a little bit of extra. Not only is that extra revenue for me, but it also makes me more valuable to them. And then they're more likely to hire me the next time. Not necessarily because I put down a great guitar track for them, but because I said, I'm here. You know what I mean? So, and that way I have kept myself employed. I've not had to go and do too many of the other regular quote unquote day jobs. I've been able to devote myself by and largely for the last 25, nearly 30 years to just music as my job, and working for me. I've been able to do that for, the most part of almost 30 years. Because I, like Chris was saying, I can do mixing, I can do mastering, I can write horn arrangements, I can write string arrangements, I can arrange backing vocal harmonies, I can do choral arrangements, I can conduct, I can do all those kind of things, which, if somebody hires me as a bass player, and they go, you know what, this song really needs horns, I can go, yeah, I can arrange horns for you. And, not only am I now hired as a bass player, which I was already, but now I'm hired as a horn arranger as well. Extra money. And I've just made myself indispensable to them, because now they're not only going to call me for playing bass on their records, they're going to call me to write horn arrangements. And of course, then that will lead to the next point of conversation, which will be, hey, do you do any other arranging? And I can go, yes, yeah, you want a string quartet on this song? Great, I can write a string quartet chart, and not only that, I can maybe even organize some musicians to play it. So you're not having to use VSTs. I can actually make some phone calls and hire in some string players for you. All of a sudden, I'm a lot more valuable to that client than I was before. And it means they're more likely to come back to me for more business. And that makes me more money. And that means I don't have to go and flip burgers at Burger King. So there you go. That would be that. Mika says, to be is to be perceived, and so to know thyself is only possible through the eyes of the other. That's not bad. I like that. Let's see. If you're an A+ musician, I think you can specialize like any other musical field, but all around for home dudes helps out in the long run. I use my studio as much as my hardware effects rack. But in music, you can be the best in a field if no one knows, or you don't promote yourself or let others, you'll be lost in the confusion of wannabes. Yeah, there's some of that I agree with. Michael Brecker was probably the greatest exponent of the tenor saxophone after John Coltrane. And he did some production work as well, but for the most part, he was just a tenor sax player and a composer. And that was what he was known for. He didn't do any mixing work. He didn't need to. He worked with great mix engineers who made him sound great. But, you know, he played on during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and, you know, into the early 21st century. He was the go-to tenor sax player for anybody who is anybody in the music business. You had Michael Brecker play on your record. Because you knew you were going to get something outstanding. You were going to get magic. A magical moment created in an ISO booth. You would get that every damn time with Michael Brecker. He wasn't a mix engineer. He was just a damn fine tenor sax player. So yes, you can totally specialize. If you want to be a great, great, great musician like that, then work your tail off to become a great, great musician like that. And that's your focus. Don't mess about with DAWs. Unless you're using the DAW to put tracks out so you can send them to clients. But, you know, don't spend ages mixing when, you know, your thing is blowing your horn or playing your guitar or whatever it is. Anyway, with that, as you know, there are other Michael Breckers out there. You just haven't heard them. Hidden away in some crack in the universe. Music is a business, and you have to treat it as such. Yeah, music is a business, but it's also an art form. And with that, you have great artists like Michael Brecker. And yes, there are other great tenor sax players like Chad Lefcoats Brown, for example, or Alexa Tarantino. Those are two other outstanding sax players that spring to mind. And there's Chris Potter as well. Chris Potter is an incredible tenor sax player. If tenor sax is your thing and that's what you love to listen to, go check out Chad. Go check out Chris Potter. Go check out Jeff Coffin. There's another one that I can immediately think of. And these guys play on a lot of records. So go check them out. Anyway, folks, it is now 1:30 in the morning, and I have a busy day ahead of myself tomorrow. So I need to get to bed because I have to be up in about 5 hours' time. So I want to thank everybody for coming in to the show tonight. I want to thank you all for your comments. Your comments have been fantastic. Your questions have been terrific as usual. And I think we peaked at, what did we peak at today? We peaked at 27, which is pretty good. I mean, that's kind of our usual peak. I would like to see a greater peak. So if my show is useful to you and you enjoy it and you know people who are not in the chat now and are not watching the show, and you think this would be great for them, then please do tell them about it. Please hit the like button. I would appreciate that greatly. And as always, I always appreciate your time coming to watch my show. And I always value your opinions. And I always value super chat donations if you so choose to make them. I don't kind of big those up. I don't tell people to do it because I don't want to compel people to donate. I would much rather people think, hey, this show is really great. It's valuable to me. Paching, you know, I'll do it because it's valuable to me. But, you know, I don't compel people to do it. I don't say, hey, please hit the super chat button. No, that's not my style. But I appreciate it very, very much when you do. So thanks very much, everybody, for coming in. And I will see you on Wednesday over on Jonny Gibe's channel, the HST Live Streams channel, where we'll be doing another episode Songwriting Simplified. If you haven't checked out last week's one, it was hysterically funny. And very, 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 very educational, very valuable. It was really, really good. Episode on word painting. So have your questions ready, guys, for Wednesday. We would appreciate that. And if you've got actually a subject idea, something you would like us to focus on, then please do send either me or Jonny an email and suggest it. And we will definitely do that show. So with that in mind, Jerome Weaver is here, and Lorenz has just walked in as well. And he says thumbs up. Thank you very much. So I'll see you all on Wednesday, and I'll bid you a very good night. Have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you Wednesday. Bye for now.
Soon I'll write that letter I know I'll never send, when all habitual dalliance will finally end. Then crustiness, my friend and foe, to oblivion you will go, belonging to tomorrow, belonging to tomorrow. Soon I'll make that journey out to Paradise Falls, and on all the stifling lethargy time will now be called. Then Crastinus, the snake-eyed schmo, to Gehenna town you will go, belonging to tomorrow, belonging